The wastelands were a blur of chaos and dust. As Corporal Mia Henderson, a seasoned human spy on a critical mission, sprinted across the battlefield. She was still upset about her compromised disguise, but it wasn't the time to dwell on past mistakes. Her breath was ragged, each inhale laced with the acrid smell of burning metal. The distant booms of explosions and the whistling of projectiles filled the air, creating a symphony of war. Amidst the turmoil, Mia's keen eyes spotted the glint of alien armor. The chrysalic soldiers, massive and imposing, moved towards her position. She could feel the ground trembling under their heavy steps. Her heart pounded in her chest, not in fear, but in anticipation. With a practiced hand, she raised her rifle and fired, the recoil jolting up her arm. But the odds were overwhelming. Outflanked, Mia felt a sudden sharp pain at her back, and the world spun. The ground rushed up to meet her, and darkness enveloped her senses. When Mia awoke, the smell of antiseptic stung her nose, a stark contrast to the wasteland's smoky air. "I'm inside the chrysalic's base." Her heart skipped a beat with this realization. She had long heard the rumor from countless livestock species that any hostage taken into the base was never seen again. Hands tied up, she struggled to prop herself up from the cold metal floor with her shoulders and core. Her head adjusted from the lingering dizziness, and she started to scan her surroundings. A dimly lit room hummed with the sound of unknown alien technology, a low, unceasing drone that set her teeth on edge. General Zorvak, the almighty commander of Chrysalics, loomed into view, his shadow falling over her. "A human, the bottom rung of the livestock species, is causing us trouble," he smirked, his voice a mix of amusement and irritation. Mia's eyes flickered to his, and she noticed a flicker of surprise in his expression at her stern look. "Your condescension will come back to haunt you," she replied, her voice steady despite the pain racking her body. Zorvak laughed, a sound that reverberated off the metal walls. "Condescension? Look at you. You are nothing but a feeble little rodent." Mia halted her argument as they shoved her into a cramped cage and started dragging her through a maze of dimly lit hallways. It was no wonder no species had ever escaped this place. The sheer labyrinthine complexity of the base ensured that. It felt like hours of relentless twists and turns, frictions and bumps through a dark, haunted maze. The air reeked of metallic decay. Her gaze brushed against clammy metallic walls, shivering. In nearby cells, hollow-eyed captives whispered and moaned behind rusted bars. Distant, dripping water and scuttling ogreish creatures filled the oppressive silence. Mia's heart ached for the captives, but she needed to focus on survival now. She keenly observed patterns and directions, mentally marking the locations and distances of all the hallways and entrances they went by. An intricately mapped route started to form in her eidetic mind as they twisted through the endless corridors. Eventually, the guards led her into a dimly lit chamber with a Brobdingnagian desk at its center. Mia's keen eyes immediately locked on a shiny keycard half hidden on the edge of the desk. Hope surged through her. Zorvak's entrance ensued, and he took another glimpse at his trophy captive with an ever-so-demeaning grunt. Then, he turned his face away, speaking into a communicator on the desk in Chrysalixian language. It seems Mia's spy training on the Chrysalixian is not wasted after all. She strained her ears, through all the hems and haws of the disconcerting alien syllables, catching fragments of a planned attack on the human resistance. This was crucial information, the one she was initially aiming for in her current mission. She needed to find a way to warn the Shadow Squad, the hidden human resistance in the underbelly of the wasteland. While Zorvak focused on his communicator, Mia tested her restraints, finding them surprisingly lax. It seemed her captor's arrogance extended to their security measures. With a combination of patience and subtle movements, she began to work her way free. However, Zorvak's alien honking abruptly ceased. Assuming a composed demeanor, she met his gaze and calmly asked, "Okay, big guy, what's next?" Zorvak observed Mia under the dim light with a flicker of annoyance. His deep voice echoed through the room as he stated, "Speak only when permitted. Know your place, puny human." Mia, her wrists chafed from the restraints, remained silent, her eyes again sharply scanning every detail of her surroundings. The stark room, the walls adorned with alien symbols that glowed faintly, the air thick with a scent of ozone, a byproduct of the advanced alien technology that powered the base. Zorvak, mistaking her silence for defeat, turned his back to her again, starting a conversation with one of his subordinates as they walked out of the room. Mia took advantage of this moment, her fingers subtly working at the loosened restraints. The general's hubris-infused negligence of her was his mistake, and she was exploiting it all right. The conversation outside the room grew louder, and Mia caught snippets of a scheduled system reboot and communication blackout, a routine procedure before major attacks. This was the chance. She needed to act fast and find a way to warn the Shadow Squad before it's too late. With a final twist, her hands were free. She moved swiftly, her training kicking in. Mia deftly snatched the dangling keycard that the clumsy Zorvak had carelessly left there. She then quickly scanned the communicator and awaiting the console humming to life. It was a long shot, but it might just work to send a coded message. Mia's heart pounded as she swiftly decrypted the alien device, hacking into the interface, her fingers flying over the indiscernible chrysalixian keyboard. The characters were unfamiliar, but her spy training was enough to navigate the essential functions. She quickly composed a message, encrypting it with a code known only to the Shadow Squad. Just as Mia hastily pressed Kotlastva, chrysalixian for send, her fingers trembled on the keyboard. The progress bar crawled, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. She could hear the orc's heavy, elephant-like steps starting to draw closer, the metallic door squeaking, ready to break open. Her heart pounded in her throat, reaching 98%, 99%, 100%. In a split second, she discreetly resumed her tied-up position, her wrist now subtly freed. The orc took another look at her with disdain and a hint of amusement, completely unaware that her wrist was already liberated. The fate of the resistance now hung in the balance, dependent on whether the message was received in time.